Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. The subject that we're going to discuss today on this show is very painful, very complex, very difficult. I've been interested in this for a long time. I've looked into this, and there's a part of what I'm going to introduce to you today that I really need help with because I can't sort it out. 9/11 was one of the most traumatic events in U.S. history. It made us rethink our notion of safety, the feeling of what local and national means. Most of us are still dealing with the ramifications of 9/11. People are psychologically wounded about it, and it's a very sensitive area, and it's become so sensitive that there's almost very little room to talk about it. And those that talk about it and question it and are investigating and trying to figure out what they saw on television of complete building collapses in 6 seconds just shook a lot of people's view of what they saw. It defied science. Most of us are still asking, what happened to the buildings? 3 buildings, one of them that wasn't even hit by an object. I had to invite Dr. Judy Wood at drjudywood.com, who has a PhD in materials engineering science, has several degrees actually, to help explain how come the buildings came down the way they did. What is her take on it? Help us understand what we saw with our eyes that doesn't make any sense to us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dr. Judy Wood to It's Rainmaking Time.
Hello, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. When I say my pleasure, I should say it's a sad state of affairs, what we're about to talk about, but I feel like we have to continue to talk about it. Not to talk about the politics of it, not to try to sort out all the intricate matrices of people and agencies and world-coordinated things that happen on the political side or geopolitical side. I just want to understand the science of what happened to the buildings. And it's never sat right with me to watch those buildings go down the way they did. And it hasn't sat properly with people who have your kind of experience all over the world. I want to say a special message to It's Rainmaking Time listeners to please suspend your need to judge, suspend your need to know, suspend your need to espouse the official story of what happened to the buildings, and know that it's part of a democratic society, it's part of a free speech society, it's part of being a good citizen to actually look into this more fully, to try to understand what we saw with our eyes. It'll put a part of what happened into a context for further examination for years to come. All right, Dr. Judy Wood, talk to us about what happened with the buildings that we saw first.
Well, I'll start out. I began looking at all of the images, and I'm in the process of getting a book published, and there's a little bit I would like to read from it about these images. And from one of the chapters I wrote, looking at these images can be difficult. It was too difficult for me until I realized that these people in the images were communicating to us. They want us to hear them, and they want their stories told. Once I realized this, I could not look away, for I had made them a promise to look at what they were trying to tell us. And in the various chapters in this book, I attempt to fulfill that promise to them, to find out what happened. And that, to me, has been the main thing. Not who done it. That's downstream from it. I also say I don't believe that our government is responsible for doing this, nor do I believe that our government was not responsible for this. This is not a case of belief. It's a crime that needs to be investigated with a scientific study of the evidence before you can determine who did it. And we were immediately told who did it and how they did it before we even knew what was done. It's kind of like taking somebody, charging somebody with murder, and with a gun, and you haven't even determined if the body has bullet holes in it. And what I've found is the body does not have bullet holes in it. And so that's what I've been exploring.
You know, I have to tell you that there's a lot of pressure today in society not to talk about 9/11, except in a memorial context. And because there's a lot of pressure not to talk about it, because of the laws that have been put into place, people feel pressure not to talk about it, not to look at it, not to examine it, not to even verify what they saw with their eyes. So that makes a certain limitation in discussing it in general, A, and B, you're called a conspiracy theorist if you go into your own examination. Well, you've done it.
Because I don't deal with whodunit. I do not deal with conspiracy theory at all. A conspiracy is where two or more people plot to do a crime. Well, I'm not talking about who plotted what and who was standing where and who did what to whom when. I'm just talking about the physical evidence. And physical evidence cannot be considered a conspiracy theory. It's a forensic study. It's an engineering study. An analysis of the evidence has nothing to do with whodunit. So there shouldn't be any pressure, but there is because it contradicts the story we were giving.
Well, talk to us about what we saw with our eyes first, would you?
Well, on that day, what I saw and what I heard were two different things. And whenever that happens, I block out what I'm hearing. I just don't hear it. It's just one of my quirks. And what I saw on TV looked like a sweater unraveling. And I thought to myself, wait, how would a building look? No, it wouldn't look like, no, that doesn't look like that. It just did not make sense at all. How a building, peels like a banana. And knowing about, mechanics and my area of expertise is in physical observation. So I did some quick calculations about how long it would take, they're saying it pancake down. Well, if the top floor pancakes the next one, pancakes the next one, it's like 12-foot apart hands clapping. If the building completely went away in 8 seconds, the North Tower, the ground shook for only 8 seconds, how many times can you clap your hands in 8 seconds?
Let me try. I don't know. I don't know how many that was.
It sure wasn't 110.
You mean 110 floors?
Yeah, we had 110 floors that supposedly pancaked down in 8 seconds, according to the official story.
I saw the image of, is it an earthquake in Pakistan that you had an image of that looked very different than the 9/11 buildings? Very different.
Right. It was an apartment building, and it looked like, all the floors there, they're just closer together, stacked up like pancakes. So if you have a pancake collapse, you should have a stack of pancakes at the bottom when it's over with. And instead, we saw like nothing. There's pictures taken, as soon as the dust cleared, within, 20 minutes, where you could see completely at ground level across the World Trade Center complex. And no building in the way. Where, that morning, you had a 110-story building right there. And you can see an ambulance that was parked right outside the front door of Tower 1. And the ambulance is still there, almost in pristine condition. There's just nothing else around it.
Well, how is that possible? What is your take on this? I haven't gone through your entire website.
One thing that I think is very important here is to not try to jump to conclusions. If you try to jump to conclusions, you end up maybe taking a false choice. It's like taking a multiple choice test without the right, choices being in there.
Okay.
And so I just started looking at the evidence, and my theory is if you listen to it carefully enough, it'll tell you exactly what happened. If you don't know what happened, just keep listening until it does tell you. Don't force it. And so I just started looking at the images as though I was walking around the site. You could feel it, you could smell it, you could taste it. And, I could close my eyes now and walk around the site and know just where things are. And knowing what was, and I started noticing some bizarre things, like windows with circular holes in them, as though someone took a glass cutter and just made a perfectly round hole, no cracks. And when you talk about suppression of any discussion of 9/11, my question is, what does the physics teacher tell the student when he says, "Teacher, but when I throw a baseball through my window, it leaves a